Are you constantly distracted, falling behind, and staying late? Learn how to sharpen your focus and beat procrastination so you can get more done and actually get home on time. Cheryl Chase, PhD, is a licensed clinical psychologist based in Independence, Ohio, specializing in psychological assessments and treatments for clients across the lifespan. With a focus on conditions like ADHD, learning disorders, and emotional challenges, Dr. Chase offers expert diagnostic services and tailored treatment strategies. In addition to her clinical work, she's a sought-after international speaker delivering dynamic workshops on executive functioning, dyslexia, co-regulation, emotional concerns, ADHD, and improving performance both at work and in school. This is not just for those with ADHD. This can help us all be more efficient. And there was so much great material. You're listening to Succeed in Medicine, the show for practicing physicians who want to master the parts of their career and life that med school never prepared us for. From interpersonal skills to career navigation to the essential information every physician needs. I'm Dr. Bradley Block, and in every episode, we bring you brass tacks advice and immediately applicable insights from world-class experts so you can feel prepared wherever your MD takes you and build a life in medicine that's sustainable, rewarding, and actually worth all those years of sacrifice. And we're back. Welcome to part 2 with Dr. Cheryl Chase. Dr. Cheryl Chase, we were talking about improving our executive functioning. So actually, when we left off, we were talking about self-monitoring. And what you were talking about was these tone tapes where you would pre-record them and there would be these tones at preset intervals. And it sounded like they were random intervals.
Intervals
so
are
you would
different.
Never know. Okay.
Yeah, you
so
don't
never know
because
what's coming.
if you do it at 45 seconds, your brain knows, all right, I can lapse. And then, oh, wait, it's almost 45 seconds. I'm paying attention now.
Yeah.
So you want to keep it guessing.
Okay. And I'm sorry, now that we're not using tape decks anymore,
Yes.
Is there an app specifically designed for
I have
that?
not found one. I have not found one.
Interesting.
The way I do it myself is I play music and I just find a playlist and I'll hit play and the songs are at different, the one song will end in a minute, one will end in 2.5 and I just ask myself when the song is over, were you on task?
Okay.
But you want to pick music that doesn't have lyrics because your brain will have competing interests if you're trying to watch a video or read words or, read a module or something like that or write a grant or whatever. If it's word heavy and you're listening to words and music. So find something that is instrumental or, sound waves or something like that. And whenever there's a break in the songs, go, am I on task? Am I doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And then go from there. Because whenever I talk about this, people say, will you make tone tapes and sell them? And I'll add it to my list of things to do, but
for the app developers out there, it
Yes.
can't be that hard to create this app.
be.
I will speak to my friends who are programmers and we will try to
Yes.
come up with something. I think that's a great
random
idea.
intervals.
Okay. And so actually, we keep on going in these different directions, music while you're working.
Mm-hmm.
And so for the ADHD brain, I'd heard about this. I try to get as much of my ADHD information from Dr. Russ Barkley.
Yep.
For those out there, if you've heard him speak or read any of his book, he's super dry, but so on point. I love it when he says, the problem, parents, is you, not them. Change your expectations. It's not the kids, it's you. Right. Just a little shout out to Dr. Russ Park. So I've heard putting music on that, as you said, no words, right? Classical music, whatever, scores. Does that help kids with ADHD to do their homework more efficiently and stay on task more, even if we're not using it as a self-monitoring mechanism? And could it help us with the mundane tasks that we don't want to do?
Absolutely. Yeah. For many, and it's highly individualized. You always want to ask, but in all of my psych reports, if I made a diagnosis of ADHD, I talk about allowing the student to have earphones on and allow them to work to instrumental or music without lyrics, music without words as often as possible if the student finds that helpful. So there's a lot of individual variability, but many people find that incredibly helpful. So we have multiple attention systems in our brain. And one of the attention systems is when we evolved and part of our attention system is out there making sure that we're safe. And so we have free floating attention. So I might be working on something, But part of my brain is also just on alert, making sure, like, did I hear anything weird? Am I safe? Is there somebody about to attack me? What's going on? So for some people, that part of the brain is super active and super easily pulling us off the primary task that we are on. So wiggling, manipulating things in our fingers or hands, listening to music can help keep that part of the brain somewhat active.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that we are in danger of being attacked and didn't expect it. It doesn't mean that we're numbing that part of the brain, but we're giving that part of the brain a little something to do. Here, process this a little bit so that you're not getting in the way of the primary spotlight of what my attention system is doing.
Excellent. Do you have any other tips or tricks for self-monitoring so that we do stay on task? So you mentioned
I think the
tapes, you
tone
mentioned
tapes
music.
is excellent. Yeah. I think any of those watches or those devices that will buzz, they have watches and devices that you can wear that will buzz. And you can ask yourself, am I on task? Am I doing things? So that's an alternative to the tone tape, that they do have devices that will buzz or do things on your wrist that will ask you if you are on task and self-monitoring. Another one, I just love setting timers.
That's interesting because if you have a kid with an attention issue and they're like taking a long test and you give them a wristband that buzzes at random intervals as a reminder to go back to what they were doing, it seems like that's something that should be acceptable for kids. I don't know what the rules for the SATs are and all, but like for most exams in school, that seems like a reasonable accommodation as long as the kid's okay with it.
It involves the training of, back on task. If you've got a driven, motivated high school student who says, I really want to get a high score on this because this scholarship is the only way I'm going to college, it is very possible. Setting timers is a fantastic thing because you can tell yourself to persist for that amount of time. And then if you set it for, I'm going to work for 10 minutes on this charting or this boring task or whatever, and then I'm going to take 3 minutes and do deep breathing relaxation. So you set a 3-minute timer. Then you go back to 10 minutes on, then 3 minutes off. I find timers to be incredibly helpful. There are also apps that can help you cut out the things that are distracting you. So there are apps that will block on your phone the apps that you don't want to be using. So there's one Brick, BRICK, that I think is great. And you actually take this little device and you can put it on your wall across the room. So if you're working in your home office or whatnot, you have to physically get up and hold your phone up against this device to unlock all those apps on your phone, like your social medias or whatnot, so that you can access them and play with them. And then you can go back and sit at your desk and get your work done so you don't find yourself doom scrolling for 45 minutes and not getting your work done. So there are ways that you can improve your self-monitoring or increase your self-monitoring by blocking out the things that are distracting to you, like those apps in your phone.
Any other apps or devices? So we've got clocks, we've got buzzers, we've got Brick.
Clocks that are visual are incredibly helpful. So one of the things that we find is that people with particularly weak executive functioning, so not necessarily somebody who just says, like, I'm pushing the edge of the envelope of my cognitive functioning, but people who maybe have weak executive functioning have a hard time understanding the passage of time. And so we need to make clocks visual or concrete. So gauging time with a loading bar. And if you go online, you can find visual timers. And there are things like visual sand timers or visual loading bars or things like that. So if you notice when you're doing something and it shows you 80%, 90%, that's awesome. That's super helpful. You can do that for other things. You can watch time count down or time count up. But simple sand timers are really helpful as well. I was looking at a list of apps that these are constantly changing, constantly new ones coming out. But there's something called Todoist, Todoist. It helps you, organize and prioritize your to-do lists or tracking chart notes. Trello is a visual board. Notion, Notion.
Sorry, what do you mean a visual board?
It's a visual board for managing complex tasks. So it's a more visual rather than just linear words.
Got it.
So things that you can slide around and do like in a cloud visual thing. It's like a whiteboard rather than just a piece of like notebook paper. Notion, Notion. So that's going to be combining notes, tasks, and calendars. so that when you're juggling multiple roles, they can all go in there together.
Sync them all together. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the reasons that I personally don't use a digital calendar is because it generally forces you to have a start time and an end time. And I need to put a lot of notes in there. So I'm old school with paper because I don't know what the end time's going to be. And I don't want to commit to it. And I'm going to make a mistake. But something like this Notion, you have much more flexibility to put notes and tasks in there clockwise.
Yeah. For me, if I had a handwritten calendar, I would leave it somewhere and it would be gone. Like my phone is always with me. And so even though it's less than ideal, especially with all the distractions, at least it's with me. And so then, doing things by hand, I might do it for a little while, but just knowing myself.
And I've heard that abandoned. The digital calendars have backups, which a lot of people tell me is fantastic.
Yeah, it's then on my laptop, it's whatever device I happen to be on. I'm able to click over and see if I've got anything else I need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I find myself a lot of times saying, when I get back to my calendar, I'll let you know. When I get back to my calendar, I'll let you know versus clockwise. This is cool because it's an AI-driven calendar tool that creates focus time and minimizes interruption. So now these apps are just going to start blowing up even more now that AI is around. Forest, Forest, it gamifies focus by growing virtual trees the less you use your phone.
Oh.
So it's one of those that rewards leaving your phone where it is. Focus at will, focus, and then the @ sign, WILL. It's music designed to improve concentration. Rescue time, it tracks the time you spend on task and different websites, and it will give you feedback about what your distractions are. So RESCUE, rescue time. Clockify is it time tracking for productivity and analysis in busy work environments. I don't know much about that one. I heard about that from one of my patients. Mini Node, MININODE. This is a mind mapping app that helps you plan and brainstorm if you have a really complex task. So this would be a good place. And I just use regular chat or Copilot or Grok so that when I have a big task, I can break it down.
Yeah. So you have the AI help you break down a big task.
Yeah.
Into bite-sized
I just
pieces,
dump it in and I say, here's the amount of time I have each day. Here's the number of days that I have. Give me a way that I might be able to break this down and give me a visual calendar. And it, just pops out something for me that I can modify. And then the last one is Freedom, FREEDOM. And that's another one that blocks distracting websites during regular work hours. So those are just a few that you can play with. Those are the ones that I've heard about from clients. And then I asked AI, is there anything new? And it offered me a couple more, but they're changing all the time. So.
Oh, yeah. If you like this podcast episode, you're going to love the podcasts over at the Doctor Podcast Network. For instance, Telemedicine Talks. Telemedicine is revolutionizing healthcare. Dr. Lee Damasco and Phoebe Gutierrez of Telemedicine Talks bring you to the forefront of this digital transformation, featuring insights from pioneers and practitioners. Stay ahead of the curve, subscribe to Telemedicine Talks, and navigate the future of medicine with confidence. That's great. We'll link those up in the show notes. So for all the listeners, don't worry. You don't have to, stop, rewind, and write those things down, especially those of you that are driving. So we'll make sure that we list all those in the show notes to check them out. And then I'd love to get everybody's feedback and what they find to be the most effective ones, the ones that help manage their tasks. We were speaking on the last episode about how busy we are, right? About how we've got home life, we've got work life, and a lot of times the caseload gets so big, but we don't always have to do everything, right? Some stuff we can just not do. And I find that the hard way because I have a to-do list. And then I'll go back to my to-do list and I'll realize that something is so far at the bottom and the deadline has passed and it's no longer relevant and I had never gotten to it. And that's how sometimes it makes its way off of my list because I just know it's just never going to happen now. And so there's a way to decide that stuff ahead of time, right? Your Eisenhower matrix. So I've heard of that before. And I think we've had a discussion about it on a previous episode that might have been a couple of years ago at this point. But what is an Eisenhower matrix?
So the Eisenhower matrix, it's an interesting frame up. So the Eisenhower matrix was named after, or allegedly named after, President Eisenhower, and it was made popular really by Covey, as he was talking about habits of highly successful people.
Yeah.
And it's a 2x2 matrix. And along the one axis, we talk about prioritizing tasks by urgency. And then along the other side, we're talking about importance. And so what you end up with is 4 boxes or 4 quadrants. And if something is considered urgent and important, you do it.
Yeah.
If it's urgent and it's important,
Do it now.
you
Now.
do, right? And there you go. If something goes into the other quadrant of important, but it's not really that urgent, you got to get it done, but it's not urgent. So one of the things on my important but not urgent is my son is going into a senior year of high school and he plays soccer. I have to turn in his physical form, the form that the doctor signs off on that, yeah, he's okay. So I have about 3 weeks to get that done. It's important. It doesn't fall in the urgent category.
Until
So-
it is. Yeah.
Right. So that's something that I will schedule. It's on my
Yeah.
to-do list and it's got to be done by August 1st. So that's Friday. So, in my mind, I'm going to say it's done by Friday because I know it needs to be officially in their hands by the 15th. The next quadrant, if you look at it, is urgent, but not important. So it's something that's got to be done this week. So we have our small town home days, and I need to make sure that I have these cookies made for this event by Friday. For me, I've got 3 other deadlines this week. So it's important to them. It's
If
not me.
it didn't happen, it wouldn't be a tragedy.
Correct.
So it
If
doesn't
didn't-
have to happen.
You
right.
got it.
Okay.
You got it.
So there's has to happen, must absolutely happen, and then should happen, but doesn't have to happen.
You got it.
Yeah.
And so
Okay.
sometimes it's slippery because how
Yeah.
do we define important, right? How do we define important? It's important to somebody else. I mean, this organization that's trying to raise money would really like these cookies so they can sell them and raise their money. But for Cheryl, for me, it's just not important right now. But it is urgent. If
Yeah.
it's going to get done, it's got to get done by Friday. So I can delegate that. I can run up to the corner bakery and say, hey, make me 3 dozen of these really cool sugar cookies and decorate them. So you delegate. If it's urgent but not important,
And break a couple to make it look like I made them.
exactly.
Yeah.
So if it's urgent and important, you do it. If it's important but not urgent, you schedule it. You make sure it gets on that schedule. If it's urgent but not really important, you delegate it. And then guess what? If it's neither urgent nor important, you eliminate it.
Yeah.
You just don't do it. And something like that would be, I want to make sure I scroll on the internet for 25 minutes today, or, I want to look for.
Well, you don't have to schedule that stuff because that just happens organically.
Exactly. Like Prime days are coming up and I want to make sure I do all my Christmas shopping. And you know what? Maybe that's not important or urgent right now.
I think it's going to be hard to think of the stuff that's not urgent and not important,
Good.
right? For me, I was at the beach yesterday and my umbrella almost blew away.
Okay.
So I want to find a wind-resistant umbrella.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to need to schedule that because that's going to be somewhat enjoyable scrolling through Amazon for something to buy, like I'm some hunter in the wild looking for a meal.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That is neither urgent nor important.
Right.
And so if it's going to happen, it's going to happen because I want it to.
Yes.
I'm having trouble thinking of things that aren't urgent and aren't important
Right. Right.
that wouldn't
Well,
happen
and the
because I
beauty
just
is-
don't want to, you know?
Yes. Yes. And the beauty is then maybe you can say, really, there's not much that I do that's not important. There's not much that I do in my life that isn't important to me, at least.
Yeah.
But that might be a great example of things that I wouldn't like to do it because there's value in doing it. But as you said, how are we going to define important? It's not the end of the world if it doesn't get done.
Yes.
I'd like for it to get done.
Yes. I think that
Yep.
sounds like the bottom
Yep.
corner of the matrix.
Yep.
I would like to, but if it doesn't happen, it's okay. Great. Okay.
And I'll tell you, for those of us who are living the kind of lives that we're living, we're pushing hard.
Yeah.
We're pushing hard. We're playing a symphony every day. There's a lot of things that are going to feel urgent and important. And so a piece of that is really asking ourselves, what can we delegate? And delegating can be hard because there's a learning curve when we're delegating. We have to teach people how to do things to our standards or how to do things, period. But also realizing that will pay dividends over time. If we can delegate and teach, that will come back and give us more time down the road.
Excellent. I think that's amazing advice.
Yeah.
So we've spoken a lot about finding ways kind of around our executive functioning weaknesses right? Like these workarounds, these ways to treat ourselves, to get things done when we don't necessarily want to monitor to make sure we're still on tasks. And so I've heard you refer to executive functioning is the management system of the brain. But if we do have a weakness in our executive functioning that we want to work on, that we want to improve, rather than finding these workarounds, is there any way to do that? Is there any way to strengthen our weak executive function systems?
Barkley talks about replenishing our supply. Now, I want to back up real quick because Barkley is Mr. ADHD, but he is also Mr. Executive Functioning. So when I talk about Barkley, I don't want to imply that all of your listeners have ADHD. Barkley came about his theory of ADHD by understanding executive functioning. And he says that ADHD is probably better called dysexecutive syndrome. So people with ADHD definitely have a disorder and their brain works differently. But we can take a lot of the principles that we use for people who have a diagnosis of ADHD and tell folks who don't have the disorder, a lot of this is still really helpful. So I don't want to imply that if people are hearing a lot of themselves in this, that they must have the condition. But that being said, if you think you may have ADHD, by all means, talk to a professional and see. It's very possible that for the first time in your life, you go see a professional and you're a working physician and you have been doing pretty well in your life. And it does happen that someone is diagnosed for the first time in adulthood. It happens with some frequency. But that being said, Barkley offers what he considers to be ways to replenish the pool of executive functions. Okay. And I call it the EF bucket. And things like, before you begin an EF heavy task, do some mindfulness, some deep breathing, some box breathing, which is inhale for a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, and then hold for a count of 4. And I don't mean suck in air as fast as you can, as deep as you can, and blow it out as fast as you can. But I tell people, inhale through your nose, calm and steady, like you are smelling a flower, and you want to get that smell way up into your brain. So it's just a steady in your nose. And then you hold it, and then you exhale like you have a candle about 6 inches from your lips, and you don't want to blow it out, but you just want to make the flame dance. So it's a steady out your pursed lips, and then you hold. If you do 3 or 4 of those, you actually do release different chemicals in your brain, and you're shifting into a calmer, more mindful state and being present in the moment. So if you can take 2 or 3 mindful minutes, when we hear about mindfulness, a lot of people think, oh gosh, I got to do a 20-minute meditation. When am I going to fit that in? Actually, it's better. It's more functional, and it's better for you throughout your life and throughout your day to do little mindful minutes throughout the day. A mindful 1 minute or 3 minute, you're at a red light, you do a mindful minute. You don't have to close your eyes. You're in the elevator. 2 or 3 deep breaths.
Get off your phone.
That's brilliant. And you know, our watches now, if you're an Appler or a Garmin or whatnot, it often will remind you, do a mindful minute. Turn that thing back on. That alert that you probably shut off on day 3 of owning your phone.
Yeah.
And the way to replenish your EF bucket, do those mindful minutes throughout the day, especially before you're about to start an EF heavy task. Getting out in nature, physical activity. Barkley talks about exercise to the point where you're breathing like this. 20, 30 minutes, 2 to 3 times a week. Sipping glucose-rich beverages, not guzzling, sipping, because it gets the fuel up into those frontal lobes.
Hey,
while
tea.
While you're working on stuff, he says, sip on something with some glucose in it while you're working on things. So you don't want to give your kid a bottle of soda while he's working on his homework, but little sips of a glucose-rich beverage.
Yeah.
And I do a whole series, and I'm working on recording it for this online academy I'm trying to pull together about how to thrive. And it's breaking this down into 8 different segments, but essentially have a healthy body.
Basically, same stuff we tell all our patients for their well-being we need to do ourselves. So what you're saying is in order to optimize our executive functioning, we need to be practicing what we're preaching. So it is getting good sleep. It is getting physical activity. It is nurturing social relationships. It is eating a balanced diet. And I tell this to my patients all the time. I feel like I'm missing something. So sleep, physical activity, diet, relationships. And then you mentioned like these little mini mental pauses. You got it. Right? And so that sounds like between patients is a great time to do it, right?
Take care of the brain and the body because that's where executive functions come from. And so, no, I don't have a quick hack or a quick answer of how to improve the muscle of executive functioning.
Okay.
But taking care of your brain, taking care of your body, and being aware of the things that are really executive function heavy and doing those mindful minutes before you engage in an EF heavy task. And taking breaks along the way to replenish the pool when you need to. Yep.
Fantastic advice. So if people want to learn more from you, because you do this type of stuff all the time, you're advising professionals like us on how to optimize our functioning in the setting of ADHD. And actually you do it also out of the setting of ADHD as well for executives and professionals who just want to optimize their functioning. So where do we find you?
I have a website, chasingyourpotential.com. I have a physical office just outside of Cleveland, Ohio, but I'm actually licensed to see patients in 42 different states. So folks are welcome to give me a call, and I'm happy to spend some time talking with them and finding out how I can be helpful. So they can call me at the office or check me out on the website, and my contact information's on the website.
Amazing. Well, this was originally going to be one episode, but you had so much great information for us that we turned it into two. Dr. Cheryl Chase, thank you so much for your time and all you do for your patients.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. I have a favor to ask. You listened to the episode until the end, which means either you fell asleep or you really liked the episode. So please write us a 5-star review, take a screenshot, and email it to me so I can send you a quick guide on how to earn patient trust in 20 seconds or less. Email me at brad@physiciansguidetodoctoring.com and feel free to suggest a topic or guest. I take your requests seriously. The views expressed on this episode are those of the interviewer and the interviewee and do not represent the views of their employer or even their significant other. Even though the magic of podcasting makes it sound like I'm talking directly to you, this is not a doctor-patient relationship, and this is not medical advice, or financial advice, or legal advice, or really any advice. Thanks again for listening to Succeed in Medicine.